I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to Made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the only podcast that has less organization than a Hayes cannery out of wherever, USA. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mike Urevich, and I honestly don't remember when the last time I slept was, so that's a thing. And with us, as always, is our two co-hosts. First is a person who I'm fairly certain at this point can just say, I am the knight. It's Joel Codner.
Great to be with you guys. Mike, I'm honestly surprised, being that this is take 2 of the recording, that you still went with that Hayes joke, because I wasn't really sure what that meant.
Oh,
I get where you're going with it. It just
neither do I.
Landed a little wobbly for me.
That is my life right now, a little wobbly. With us as well is probably someone who can say they are the day. That's a bad joke. Kevin Abbott.
Your definition of joke is very interesting. Guys, it is an honor and a privilege to be with you as always. And I am looking forward to how we're going to pull this podcast out of our asses, gentlemen. So let's get it rolling.
Yeah. So we're going to do mental health checks, some just free period. Let's call it free period. You know,
Free
that
play?
back in school, like when you could just do whatever you want in the library. We're doing whatever we want in our library, which is the internet. Makes no sense, right? Right? Cool.
We're having a rough time. I am very scared. If Joel can just talk about whatever Joel wants to talk about, we're in for a ride.
So we're before we really throw to Joel on that and get to hear about Batman the Batman for about 35 minutes. Let's check on beverages. Kevin, what is your trifecta tonight?
So right now I'm going with a pineapple Spindrift, one of my last cans of Simulated Summer IPA by Barrel of Monks Brewing. It's all sold out, and I've got like 2 left. And man, is it good. I'm very sad it's gone. And then I've got some Templeton Rye whiskey. So that's what I'm working with.
Nice. Joel?
So, as always, I've got my ice water, this time in my Lewis Black faux Starbucks cup that reads, "Go fuck yourself." And then I've got my Mountain Dew Baja Blast, hard Mountain Dew, in my Pints and Panels exploding smoothie beer glass.
We didn't get to see any of that because of your green screen background.
Oh, that's too bad.
The Baja Blast especially gets filtered out.
Yeah, this color does not exist in nature. I don't know how they pulled this off.
I have my trifecta. I have my Liquid Death can. I am drinking some Lummox Citra dry hopped cider from my friends at Plowman Ciders in Pennsylvania. And I have a little bit of Kavanaugh Irish whiskey with me as well. Something my wife really likes Irish whiskey, and she always likes to try new ones from that. So this is a new one that she picked up at the store recently.
I didn't even know Brett Kavanaugh had a whiskey.
Yeah, because he's more of a beer guy, right? He kind of
Yeah.
like made that be a thing. But yeah, I mean,
He's got an
I guess-
important job now. I guess he's stepping up the alcohol content.
I mean, I would too if I had to hang around all those people, especially Neil Gorish.
You guys liking this biting political commentary,
Oh.
guys? Everybody good?
So, mental health checks. We did this a little bit in the early days of the pandemic, right? When Bill Balmagiano was still on the show. We've reached pretty much 2 years of this pandemic thing going on, and as far as Florida's concerned, it doesn't exist anymore, right? So how are you guys feeling with our world, our industry, just your general sense of comfortable ability out functioning as a human being? And for that, I throw to Joel probably for the rest of the show.
Oh God, this is like when I got picked first at the roast. When Mike threw out the mental health check topic in our Slack chat, I was like, well, I guess this one's going to be a fucking downer. So, how am I feeling about the world, you asked? Not great, but also slightly indifferent, because just as it seems like we're getting another kind of reprieve from the pandemic, things are, looking up a bit, numbers are going way down, and it's like, let's start World War III over in Eastern Europe. And then I thought to myself, you know what? If the nukes fly, we're not going to know. We'll know when the blast wave comes through your front door. That's so I stopped worrying about that pretty quickly. State of our industry, I'll pass on that one. Actually, I won't, real quick, and I don't even want to throw out this website, but I should, because I know you guys will want to look through it. Someone tweeted something called brewerystars.com, which happened to rank, using all of their metadata, which I guess is just a compilation of rankings from across the internet, all the breweries and cideries and meaderies in Florida are in one giant fucking list. Congratulations, Mike. Copperpoint ranked 101, Barrel of Monks 116. I believe the total number is like
We're number 1
or something.
101.
So
I mean, that's above the midpoint for both of us, so we're really, really doing great.
yeah, top half, top third, basically.
What were the highlights on the top end there, Joel? Do you remember?
Well, the number 1 brewery doesn't hold a brewery license.
Yeah, that I don't want to get into, because this is supposed to be about me, not Mike's nitpicking of people's legalities in the industry or not legalities. No, it was just infuriating to read, because before I even looked at the list, someone said Zydeco in Tampa was 240. And I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? That's like a top 3 brewery in Florida for me. So, it's just more clickbait bullshit. And not to disrespect anyone on the upper end of the list, but it's clear that certain ones pretty high up there are there because of inflated hype and all the bullshit breweries do to, you know, get their stuff ranked higher and trade value and all that horse shit. You know, I had one of the fucking worst, I mentioned this on the last episode, one of the worst pastry stouts of my life recently, and I'm sure that brewery, you know, has near a 5-star rating on that thing. Anyway, overall, and I wrestled with this, and I even made goddamn notes because I couldn't keep track of it all. Don't worry, I won't go all night. You guys will have your time. And Mike, don't worry, I'm saving Batman for my last call. But to be totally truthful, not mentally doing great. For starters, when I was on the way to work this morning, got a phone call from my son's teacher saying he was fucking off during class and failing, and it sucks because that's not the only class he's struggling in, and you just kind of feel like a fucking failure as a parent. You know, it's really hard, you know, and you just want to grab him and choke him and go, what the fuck's wrong with you? Just do it, you know, like having been there and learned all the lessons of high school and the ramifications of whether or not you do well, and how that affects you later in life, you know, you just want to slap the fucker and go, I went through this already. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not listening. So, on the plus side with him, he had his first kiss recently, which I'm also not prepared for. And then someone at school took a picture of one of the kisses and sent it, or posted it online, which my wife got a screenshot of, which she then sent to me. These kids fucking record everything. They're worse than us. So yeah, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for him to be active in any sort of way. But I'm kind of glad he did it and kind of got through that step in his young development. But you know, the school thing sucks and it's hard, and you know, we've exhausted all options, so we're kind of struggling with what to do next. My therapist gave me a book to read to help me with an issue I'm experiencing, and the book is terrible. It's just some fluffy piece of shit written by some self-entitled, you know, seemingly trust fund baby that just had everything handed to them, so I don't really understand the point of the book, and I probably should have read a few...
Physically fluffy?
Yes. Oh. Yes, it's made.
So at least it's a pillow.
It's printed on a down feather goose whatever pillow. It's on a My Pillow is what it is.
Was it Mike Lindell? Is it his life story?
Fuck.
Is that what
you know? What? I didn't order the book. I ordered a My Pillow, and I've just been reading the back of it.
The tag is engrossing. You can't put it down.
And yeah, and next month will a little less than a month from now will be exactly 30 years that I've been in Florida. Not a milestone for me by any stretch. I've never really enjoyed it here. I was brought against my will and then stayed because I'm an idiot, and now I'm stuck. So that's fun to struggle with, and you know, it's funny that World War III would be the least of my problems. First world problems.
Wow. Okay.
And honestly, I'm saving the good stuff for Patreon.
Which we still don't have, so...
on the plus side, my doctor put me on testosterone, so I'm like basically a 42-year-old walking boner.
So you're far right now?
Yeah.
So I'm just lucky that I had walking boner on our episode bingo card, because now I'm sure to win.
Well, that was my way of kind of warming you up to the idea of using that for our double IPA name. I didn't want to put that in the email thread just yet.
don't put this kind of genius ideas out on the podcast, Joel, before we get a chance. There'll be 37 beers called Walking Boner listed on Untappd in the moment this comes out.
Walking Boner
we've got a week
jams.
to lock
There
it
you
down.
go.
That's true. That's very true.
All right. Well, Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm not sure if it always happens this way, and this might be very woe is me, but I feel like I always have to follow Joel, and sometimes Joel is just really, really funny, and sometimes Joel it's really hard because what he says is a little bit sad and depressing, being honest, and because that's what you're going through, and I'm sorry to hear it. As my friend, I'm sorry to hear it. And as a podcast person trying to follow it, I'm also sad because it makes it difficult. I'm doing okay. Professionally, I'm doing well. The brewery's doing well. At this point, we're actually up about 15 to 20% over what we were pre-pandemic, which is really, really nice. Personally, I have a 4-year-old that is doing well, but going through some of those situations. We actually had this morning a 40-minute ordeal because he had a splinter in his foot. And you would have thought we were trying to kill the child because we were trying to take a splinter out of his foot. Now, I know anyone who hasn't gone through this is probably saying, wah, wah, wah. But seriously, it was traumatic. This kid was screaming his head off like I was trying to murder him with an axe when I was just trying to get an eensy little splinter out of his foot. And you don't ever want to hurt your child that way. So there are things like that are going on that are always a new thing that we're dealing with. But yeah, the state of the world and the fact that we're getting close to World War III. I want to remind you, Joel, and this is not to put a damper on your joy or at least acceptance of the shockwave coming through your home, but we're unlikely to be hit here in South Florida, so we're just going to die from radiation poisoning. That's a slow, miserable death. So we do have that to look forward to as well.
Quick counterpoint on that. When Putin was announcing their new hypersonic missiles, which we don't have, the graphic he used showed Florida as a potential impact site.
Well,
So,
okay. Well,
it was more West Coast, so, we'll lose a lot of good breweries, but
take
hey,
that,
maybe
Cigar City.
We'll lose a lot of good breweries, but hey, at least
And
it'll bump us
meadery.
up on the brewery stats or whatever website next year.
Well, in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, Barrel of Monks is going to be at least number 35 in Florida as far as the breweries go. And I will tell you this, in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, there will still be 14 or 15 new breweries opening up every year in our neck of the woods because those mutants need to get their drink somewhere.
And they'll still be making hazy IPAs that have the same core base malts to every single one of them.
Listen, rebranding the same beer over and over again is genius. Why don't we do that, Joel? Joel, get on that. Let's make the same beer over and over again with a different can.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna make a premonition. The hype beer of the apocalypse will be radioactive Rausch beer.
Certainly has a beautiful ring to it.
Because every beer will be smoked, probably. Kevin, just as a new parent and learning about reactions to stuff, we've had one of our boys has been a little congested lately and having to use the snot sucker to remove snot from their nose is a traumatic thing, especially with the reaction that you get out of the child. You were telling me about a meltdown that you had a few months back for telling your child that he could watch a dinosaur show. And which was worse, the splinter or being told he could watch a show?
No, it was this splinter was absolutely traumatic. My wife Allie and I were just floored this morning. We were both affected by it because there's just nothing you can do. Your kid has a problem that is solvable, but the solution is horrific to them. And you cannot hold a 4-year-old down. I mean, some people are picturing a 4-year-old like a normal size 4-year-old. My 4-year-old is the size of some 6-year-olds. I don't know how I'm a normal sized human.
He's only like a foot shorter than Joel.
I don't know if that's true, but we'll have to get them together and measure. But he's big and he's unwieldy. It's hard to hold him down. You can't do it. So if he doesn't want something to be done, it ain't going to be done. And the screaming and the misery as a parent to see your kid going through that is just really, really, it's traumatizing. And it's traumatizing for him. And that's the worst part about it. We've now gotten to the point where a splinter, this is the second time he's had one. And he just, from this point on, he's just going to keep splinters in his body until he's 15 because he's going to have PTSD every time we grab the tweezers out. So, yeah, parenthood, man. You can't solve every problem. That's one of the things that Allie, my wife, and I are trying to figure out now.
You know how you soften him up to the tweezers? Get him the game Operation. Make it fun.
That's not a bad idea. See, parenting tips by someone who has older children. Always very helpful.
Yeah. We have the Star Wars Operation in our house. Was just playing it last week with my nephew. He's
the hell do you operate on in Star Wars Operation?
R2D2, oddly enough.
Seems like an odd choice.
It is, but they make the sounds be a bunch of R2's crazy sounds instead of a buzz. It's like him is like wow, or just like random beeps and stuff like that.
You have missed your career calling as a Foley artist because I felt like I was there in the Star Wars universe when you just did that noise. That's something you should look into, Mike. It's a great career moving into your 40s.
If I would have just like, if I could really commit myself, it'd be like Phil Lamar and John DiMaggio than me. Like,
well, listen, Lord knows this brewing thing's not going to work out for any of us. So you got to have something to fall back on. And if you can make interesting noises with your mouth, I mean, you can do that, or you can be a beatbox in a rap.
Michael Winslow's
trio,
still doing stuff, right? Right?
Who?
Right?
Michael Winslow. This is the first time Michael Winslow's been mentioned on a podcast in 15 years.
I could have sworn he still does like comedy club circuits.
He does.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, to hop in myself here, I made the joke earlier about the whole sleeping thing because my wife said over the weekend, like I think it was Saturday morning, she's like, I feel like I haven't slept all night. I was like, I feel like I haven't slept since November 3rd when the boys were born. But actually, as I say that, and I'm jinxing this, last 2 nights they've actually slept pretty well. They've only woken up once during the night, so we have both of them going pretty well right now. And we've had some nights like that were good, but then immediately followed by a bad night or two. So to have 2 of them in a row was pretty nice and surprising, and made us feel like, hey, some of this hard work is finally paying off with the sleep training. Like, there was a couple times that one of them, the one who tends to be loud and boisterous about things, woke up and like, all right, he's up. Just let him soothe himself. And within a couple minutes, he's back to sleep and like, oh shit, it fucking worked. Holy fuck. So there's actually, there's some good stuff, but, and I'm now waiting for like them to start crying while I'm recording. But, I mean, that's getting better. We're getting a little bit more sleep during the night, so that's kind of nice. Work is fucking busy. This last 3-4 weeks have been extremely busy in the brewery. Our tap room has been very busy. Our sales in the market have been very high, like destroying last year numbers, and even beating 2020's numbers for this same time frame, like our first quarter almost of 2020 before the whole world went to shit. And so it's pretty awesome, but it's tiring to get up and go and do that and try to make beer and promote beer and take care of twins and try to have a healthy relationship with your wife as well. So it's a lot, and trying to also get myself creatively going again. If you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, I've been re-editing a bunch of old photos of mine and trying new techniques that I've never really implemented before, and I've been really happy with the results of a lot of those photos. And despite whether or not they get a bunch of likes, I've gotten some nice compliments from them, and I really like that, and I can't wait till I have some time to actually go out and shoot new stuff and bring in some of the new editing techniques to that to have new photos, because I really like taking pictures and doing all that. But holy fuck, beer industry is fucking busy right now for me. Sounds like for you guys too. And that's good from a business standpoint.
Mike, don't go giving a bunch of people in our industry hope that things are going to be good or they should be being good at this point. You know,
apologies.
That's not what this podcast is
down.
for. Yeah, this podcast is to point out all the inefficiencies and terrible things that we do for a living.
I forgot this is a negativity podcast. Yes, pessimist all the way. Yeah. Glass way half empty.
But yeah, I mean, listen, we are. I'm happy the brewery is doing well and actually has seen some significant growth. But we know that things can turn on a dime. There's a lot of breweries out there still suffering. There's a lot of people out there that are. We've talked about it how many times over the last several podcasts about mergers and things of that nature, and breweries shutting down and things. It's we don't know what we're going to see, especially in Florida with season coming to an end here, and season tends to be the boon times tend to be not as big, and the slow times tend to be not as slow. There's a little bit more of a flattening of that curve over the last 5 years, but it's still there for sure.
Yeah,
and we're making decisions right now, going, okay, well, taproom sales have never been bigger. But we know we can't count on those kind of numbers in 2 months from now. So we have to start making preparations to prepare for that. And the funny thing is, I'm sure, listen, up in like Vermont and places in the Northeast where they rely on snow or they rely on things of that nature, it's not just us. It's just different seasons in different places. It's funny how we always seem to be caught off guard by it. And people are, oh man, it's really struggling this year. Well, yeah, the numbers are the same as last year. Don't you remember? How long you been in this business?
When I lived in PA, I was really thrown off by their concept of season up there, because like in Florida, I think we can all kind of agree our season is kind of winter and the very beginning of spring. Mm-hmm. And then summer is slow, and the beginning parts of fall are slow, very slow. And when I was up in PA, it was like, oh yeah, our summers are slow because people go on vacation. Winter's slow because people stay inside. Spring's kind of slow too because like people are outside doing stuff, and like fall's kind of our good point. I like So there's no season really. Like we have an excuse for people not coming, going to restaurants and bars all the time.
It sounds like there's one season that you do good business in, and that sounds pretty depressing.
Yeah. Last year's season went a little long, I feel like. I remember us doing good numbers through June, which was not typical from a distribution and taproom standpoint. But I'm curious to see what we do this year during that frame. Because normally February, March, April, little bit of May. Those are like the big months.
Well, remember, it's super extenuating circumstances. That's when things really started to open up.
Yeah.
Was around that time. So people were actually going out, and it definitely did extend our season. But by the time we got into July and August and September was still a dog, like it always is. September's the worst month. You can plot 7 years now. We'll be open 7 years in a few days. Our anniversary party is on the 25th this year. But I think we opened a little bit earlier in 2015. And you can just chart it. The worst months we've ever had in our tasting room, like the 7 worst months, are always September. I mean, those are really, really tough times in this neck of the woods, whether it be for taproom sales or for distribution. And that's the thing. Not enough people are actually preparing for that. They see their numbers during talking to people about their taprooms, they seem to have those good times and go, oh, well, if we just extrapolate this for 12 months, well, that's a physical and unrealistic possibility. We can't do that. And I feel like people don't really realize that, unfortunately.
Well, I've said many times before on this podcast that I'm not much of a prognosticator when it comes to a lot of these things, but to add a sort of hopeful note, I would maybe consider how many people have moved here in the last several months. I mean, there's no fucking real estate. I refinanced my house once, and it's already so much more than that, which is preposterous. I mean, it really is. It's not real. The bubble will burst at some point. But, if I were to sell this and take a huge profit, I would have nowhere to go if I stayed here. Mm-hmm. I think we have a lot more people here now, and I think companies have moved here, and it feels, the general impression that I get about Florida from people outside of Florida is either it's like batshit crazy third world banana republic fucking failed state with a psychopath at the helm, or it's like a beacon of freedom and hope, and we did so great during the pandemic, even though we lost 70,000 people, somewhere around that. But people are flocking here like crazy. I mean, the fucking streets are just, and I know it's kind of tourist season, and the cities up north it's March now, and they're still getting snow. That's the craziest thing about climate to me recently is just, I remember waking up on Christmas Day and there'd be a blanket of white just everywhere. And now it's kind of warm, 50s and 60s in like Chicago and places like that. And now they're dealing with all this wild, erratic weather. Like, oh, it was 70 today and it's a fucking snowstorm tomorrow in March. So, it seems like a lot of people have fucking moved here, and it kind of ebbs and flows. Like, I think, we're one real bad hurricane season from people going, fuck this, I'm out of here. So it comes and goes, and like I said earlier, I've been here long enough. I've seen it come and go many, many times, and obviously I prefer it when people leave. But that's
a great T-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, I'm really starting to feel like how do I explain this? I almost feel like I want to start dressing like George Carlin or Steve Jobs, where it's just like the same goddamn thing every day, no logos, just, black, long sleeve, nothing that communicates anything to anyone, because half the time when I'm out wearing my Cubs hat, some jerk off in a grocery store has to, say something about it. And I didn't come to talk sports. Like, I barely know the team. It's my hometown. It's my home team. But, don't expect me to be a student of it. And I certainly don't want to talk to you about it in front of the Chobani yogurt sale display. But we were out the other night for dinner, my wife and I, in a nice restaurant where quite a few people were dressed like absolute slobs. I mean, when I'm the one sitting there going, there should be a dress code, there's a problem. I mean, I wear my hat all the time. I counted 3 jerk-offs with hats on in the store, or this restaurant. Drove me nuts. But there was a guy who had a shirt that said, like, it basically indicated he's in some sort of anti-social club. And my wife goes, I should get that shirt for you. And I go, no, the whole point of being anti-social is that you don't put on a fucking shirt that communicates to other people anything about you. You're like Batman. You're in the shadows.
And it all comes back around to Batman.
That's what comedians call a callback.
Ready? What time are we at?
So first of all, I just want to say I come up with great T-shirt ideas, and we. By the way, by coming up,
Excuse me.
That's
Wu-Tang Clan comes up with great T-shirt ideas.
No one gets that reference. By the
you
way.
just changed the phrasing on it.
Yeah, of course. No, what I'm saying is Joel says really funny stuff. I then say put that on a T-shirt, and we never do it. We absolutely should start doing that.
We did jacuzzi mead.
Who in the what now?
Kevin still doesn't know about jacuzzi mead.
No, that was way pre-Kevin. And that
when
was a whole
shower
Twitter
beer
thing.
When shower beer was at its peak, and there's even shirts that say like shower. I think I have one. We were like, well, what's better than beer in the shower? Mead in a jacuzzi. Flat room temperature mead in a hot jacuzzi. Hence the T-shirt we have. Mike, what's that website? Plug that shit.
UnitedWeDrink.com/store.
Dare I ask how many of those shirts we've sold?
Probably 2. Which
Love it.
Which, when we put that out, people were like, if you make that shirt, like when I put out the fucking prototype, people were like, I'll fucking buy that if you put that out. Like, all right, here you go, buy it. Yeah, maybe next week.
Don't trust anyone online, Mike. Come
No,
on, you're the marketing guy out of the 3 of us.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Not pretty much, you are. That's what you do.
I half of me does a full time of that.
Which side? Your left half? Your right half?
Yes.
The other thing I was going to say is that, yeah, man, I mean, when it comes to our local market, and I know that this kind of gets people sometimes tuned out if you're listening in a different area, but the curve has flattened.
Stay with us, California.
Stay with us. I promise we'll bring things back around to surfing, or I don't know what you do. But
Weed.
something. Bears are involved. That's all I know. So, no, I think that when I was first, God, I can't even speak anymore. When I first moved down here and was working in the restaurant industry, season was everything. I was making $300-$400 a night as a waiter, right? And then in the off season, you made $75 to $100 a night, because that was how disparate those 2 times were. And it was almost 20 years ago now when I moved down here. And we've seen that change slowly over time. I just think that a lot of people in our industry think it's accelerated a little bit more rapidly than it actually has. And they're not planning for the winter time, our slow time. And that's where people really get into trouble, unfortunately.
Yeah, I completely get that. And you know what? I probably fall victim to that myself, because it is clockwork that, like you said, September, the worst. When kids are about to go back to school, all around the world, like August and September, worst fucking months ever for business as a brewery, as a restaurant, as a bar in Florida. And we always seem to be caught off guard with our pants down around our ankles. We're like, oh, fuck, we forgot about this thing that happens every fucking year.
And funny enough, we cannot, our rent check doesn't go down.
No?
Right? I mean, there are some things, electrical use and natural gas use and things like that go down because you're not producing as much. So your bills do go down a little bit. But those overhead things, your payroll, things of that nature, they stay stagnant. And you see people going, man, we had this great December and January. Okay, well, I hope that money floats you for the next 6 months because things are about to start taking a downturn.
Yeah. So that was a little bit, that was nice little mental health, checking in, seeing what's going on. So let's have a quick little bit of fun here. With a piece of news, because the whole Stone and Coors lawsuit has gone to trial, and probably by the time this comes out, they might even have a verdict. So, normal. We do something, it happens something changes the very next day after we record this. So let's get this done and over with. Stone said that Keystone is responsible for a huge chunk of their sales lost. And when they rebranded their cans to have that big prominent Stone written on the side of it. Is Stone, oh, how the mighty have fallen type of perspective to either one of you? Because I feel like it is to me. Because there used to be a point in my professional career, even my early fanboy into my professional career, that I was like, oh, Greg Cook is someone who I look up to. He speaks his mind. And now it's kind of like, oh, you're just a fucking academic who uses his words in an interesting way that makes you sound rebellious. But you're still fucking, like, the head of a big company that makes a lot of money, and you're not as punk rock as you think you are. I'm not as punk rock as I used to think I am either. I can fucking openly admit that. But what are your thoughts on this whole thing? I'll start with Kevin this time so that Joel can follow him.
I honestly don't have a lot of thoughts. I saw this and you guys shared it, or maybe our old pal Bill shared this to us, and not a lot of thoughts. I think that it's interesting that you have these massive breweries or these macro brands, and you have this juxtaposition with a craft brand going after them. I think I might have said this in a show or so ago, so please forgive me. We are all in the same industry, but we're not in any way at all in the same fucking industry. When you look at a brewery like Stone or some of the bigger brands that have sold recently, like Bell's, someone like Barrel of Monks or Copper Point, we might as well be freaking an apple cart on the side of the road, right? Compared to the kind of production and the kind of distribution and stuff they have. So it's hard for me to kind of put myself in the shoes of another brewery that's that size, even though I'm doing a very, very similar thing. And see how they
Copper Point Apple stand opening soon on multiple corners through Boynton Beach.
By the way, those apples, that's a permanent business. That is a legacy business. You're going to do really, really well with that. So it's hard for me to kind of put myself in their shoes or really understand how their business could have been affected or not, or is it bullshit or what have you. But if you want to ask my opinion about Stone as a brand, hey, I remember driving up to Virginia, and I had a girlfriend who lived there, and being so thrilled that I got the anniversary beers and beers of theirs that were not available in Florida, and being so happy to bring them back and share them with my friends who were huge fanboys and thrilled to have them as well, and really loving the smoked porter. Oh, man, I love that freaking beer. There are beers from Stone that I remember, but I haven't had them in a long time, and they certainly don't have the prominence in our market that they once did. And on a maybe a little bit negative basis, I look at them as just another massive brewery in the market now that doesn't have as much representation, that might not need to be here. But that's my experience with Stone. I don't know how it is in California or other markets.
Joel?
Well, mixed feelings on this one, because on one hand, I can't help but agree with Stone as far as the feeling that, Miller Coors, Molson Coors, whatever it is, overstepped a little by putting Stone in giant letters on their
agree
products.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's... And, like Kevin says a lot, like, we forget sometimes that, we're in this industry and we're behind the scenes, and there are people who just don't know shit. There are just average consumers out there who don't know anything, and if they see Stone, it doesn't mean anything to them either way, whether it's Keystone or Stone Brewing. So, and me, Mr. IP theft Nazi, I feel pretty strongly about it. Just because I'm in the know. Not everyone is. In fact, I would say that most people are not in the know. And on the other hand, Stone was one of those breweries for me, kind of like how you said, Mike. It was pretty influential for me early on getting into beer, because they offered a lot of like big, bold, flavorful stuff that I was not familiar with and really impressed by. Their Imperial Stout, Arrogant Bastard, their IPA, Sublimely Self-Righteous. I still fondly remember 14th Anniversary IPA, which was an English style IPA, and the sort of tan screen printed labels. We loved. I think I used to talk to you about this, Mike. Like they're great screen printed labels.
I used to collect their bottles.
Yep.
Because of the screen printing on them.
Yeah, great descriptions, great artwork, really interesting stuff. And the beers were impressive. And it feels like over time, they sort of meandered into this kind of douchey territory. And they were the ones, who were like, fizzy yellow, piss water, they were kind of the champions of the anti-macro thing. And as I've said before on here, a lot of us got indoctrinated into that. And as it turns out, a lot of those macro brands have the quality and consistency in their truest terms and definitions, well beyond what, craft brewers can do. Try as I might to make our beers that we're brewing constantly as consistent as possible and hitting those numbers. Biochemically, they're never going to be identical, at least nowhere near what, the macro guys can do. So that's one of those things that kind of feels like a little bit of a swerve, like, maybe I was misled down the wrong path and should have been a little more open-minded about it, but that's what happens when you get into fucking beer. But, I'm very split on this one. And I have a friend who works for Stone. I like the guy. He's a great guy. Super awesome dude. And believe me, awesome people are not easy to find in this industry, at least to me. It feels like as the industry grows, there's less and less of them. But, and they've put out some fantastic beers throughout the year still, like Zocaveza, which is, I guess, their take on like the Mexican hot chocolate. Mm-hmm. And forgive me, I don't remember the name, but that tropical lager they do. A lot of great stuff still, but
Bunavesa.
There you go.
That's right.
No, there was a different one. I don't remember the name.
Oh, okay.
There was something else.
That one's a year-round for them now.
I don't know. But anyway, and it feels like, at least on my timeline on social media, if Stone is brought up, everyone's like, they kind of look at them as if they're Brewdog or McKellar or even Founders. They just seem kind of generally frowned upon. But like I said, a lot of people are not in the know, and these breweries still do very well. I thought it was hilarious. Thankfully, our pal and former co-host, who goes by Bill Balmasano now,
on our Slack channel, at least.
He provided us with a little news some details regarding this case because I guess it's just now going to trial. But under where it says Stone's take, it says the reason we're here is because of a terrible decline in Stone's business. Well, name a fucking brewery that hasn't declined in business. The jury will have to decide whether Stone deserves to be saved, whether its name deserves to be saved and protected. Now, anyone who knows me and listens to this fucking podcast knows I hate the word deserve. I don't believe in it. I don't have it in my vocabulary. So right off the bat, Stone lost me there. Now, what I found funny was on Miller Coors' side, they basically said that there's no brand confusion. One of the reasons being that our customers are basically poor pieces of shit. They didn't say it in so many words, but they did mention that their consumers make less than $30,000 per year. So then you want to go, oh, all your consumers work in a brewery? They must know about Stone. But overall, I don't think there should be any brand confusion, only because of what I know. I can't speak for the outside consumer, but to me, I don't see the confusion between the brands. However, I do think Stone. I don't know anyone who drinks Keystone, but I just feel like if I did, they wouldn't be the kind of person that would call them Stones. Like it makes me think of kid. When you say Stones plural, it sounds like you've got something really painful in your kidney.
Or that you're throwing them at things.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at Stone's site right now because between you and Kevin, you mentioned more than probably 2 handful of amazing beers that Stone put out. I might add that they've completely tore Arrogant Bastard off of Stone Brewing. It's now its own kind of branded brewery. It's now like Arrogant Bastard Brewing of sorts. So
like Blue Moon.
Yeah. Like Arrogant Bastard is not a part of Stone's portfolio anymore. It's its own thing, and it has its own its own brands of beer underneath it. And I'm looking at Stone's now calendar and looking at the year-round releases. Stone IPA and a take on Ruination. It's all stuff. After that, this is 8, 9 beers that have probably come out in the last 3 years, many of which I haven't had. Like I've had Scorpion Bowl, I've had Tangerine Express and Delicious, but they have a Belgian White, they have the Buena Vesa, Salt and Lime Lager, like they got a bunch of new stuff, and they actually did Sublimely Self-Righteous this year. They did the Green Tea IPA that I loved from a number of years ago. But Kevin mentioned that Smoked Porter. That was fucking delicious back in the day. They make seltzer now, which almost seems counterintuitive to a lot of the stuff that Greg kind of stood for. I'm all for people changing their minds. I really am. But own it. Be like, yeah, you know what? We changed our minds. We've decided. Like the whole wussy Pilsner that they made a few years ago was their first lager after they made fun of lagers for such a long, long time. It was a good lager too. But it's just like you never say never, but you're going to eat your words if you keep on saying shit like this eventually. And it's kind of like that to me. Like the beers are probably good. The ones that I haven't had, the ones that I have had they're still amazing people that work for them. But Greg's persona and his bravado just kind of wear me thin at this point. I like people who are loud and obnoxious at times, but I also like people who are humble and are willing to accept their own faults and their own losses. And even when they closed like the Berlin brewery and sold it off. It was kind of like it wasn't our fault. It was Germany that wasn't ready for us. It was like, come the fuck on. Like, admit your loss. Take the L and learn from it. It just, there's so much about him and his persona that I think holds back a brewery that has great branding, great imagery, makes fantastic beer, and just could be more, but whatever. And this is what they're going with that lawsuit, is that this beer hurt their Keystone's branding hurt their sales and made them this way. Like, come the fuck on. Like, I agree with Joel. It is egregious the way that Stone, you just take that can and turn it. All that is written on it is Stone. That is something that Stone is, I think, right on the court of public opinion that no one asked for. And they have the right to fight that, but some of this shit is bullshit. Like, just pull yourself back and refocus.
I also think that beer geeks are generally turned off by any sort of litigation whatsoever, whether
that's
the
true.
brewer.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I think that's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of who's in the right or wrong, it just always seems to be a big turnoff. You know, if Fox or whoever that owns The Simpsons sues a brewery or sends a C&D because this brewery wants to make a Simpsons beer, suddenly that's an evil corporation picking on the little guy and not someone defending their copyright or their registered trademarks or what have you. I think that any sort of litigation in any sense just kind of comes across like it's not very punk rock, it's not local independent, if you got enough money for a lawyer, like, people just always fucking forget this is a business. And that's why so many of them are destined to fail, because it's not just making beer and drinking beer and having fun. I wish it was, but it's there's a lot more to it than that. And you have to protect your intellectual property. And brand confusion can be a real thing. I mean, this was mentioned, I don't know how many years ago, in Beer Wars, and talking about Dogfish and the Pumpkin Ale and them getting sued from whoever the fuck was bigger than them at the time and making pumpkin beer. So I just think people, kind of generally get turned off by that kind of shit, and therefore, for some reason, since Stone initiated this lawsuit, are the bad guys. When I agree on the legal precedent, I just think both sides are kind of full of shit as to why. And, has anyone brought up the fact that maybe their business is declining because they've overextended themselves in the past? Did you need a fucking brewery in Germany? Did you need a hotel?
Yeah. I there's definite bullshit on both ends of this. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out in the actual court. It'll probably come out, like I said, right after we fucking finish recording this. Where are we at? Well, okay, we're good. Let's.
I like in real time you were checking things and just kind of showing how the sausage is made a little bit there. We're good. I'm looking at the time. We're good.
We'll head into last calls at this point. And for those of you who are new to the show, thank you for sticking around through all of that. But this is the point of the show where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to talk about whatever we want, unopposed, unobjected, uninterrupted, and just kind of be whatever you want to be. Just like kind of this show has been. I'm just going to get this out of the way really quick for mine, because it kind of goes along a little bit of a segue into stuff that we just talked about. I just started reading a book that was given to me to borrow from a friend of the show, Ben. It's called Sellout, the major label feeding frenzy that swept punk, emo, and hardcore. He gave this to me probably 2 months ago, and I just now started reading it. And it is a collection of stories about a bunch of major label releases for these punk, emo, hardcore bands, their first major label release. And I just started it, but I read all of the chapter about Green Day and Dookie, and that was a album that was highly influential to me, and I never really recalled at that age just how big of a phenomenon that album was, and that this book really put that into perspective to me and told me some stuff about their background and where they came from that I didn't know about. And I'm really looking forward to reading a lot more into this book, because it has stuff about At the Drive-In and Thursday and Rise Against and Against Me, and Jimmy Eat World, bands that I absolutely fucking adore. And so far, it's just been phenomenal, and I am looking forward to reading the rest of it. Thank you, Ben, for loaning it to me. Hopefully get it back to you soon. And I would recommend, if you're into punk, hardcore, emo, whatever, it's a fun perspective on selling out. Joel? Here we go, Batman.
Yep. So I'll try to be as concise as I can, since I picked up on Mike's passive aggressiveness early on, mentioning my current what is it? Is enamoration a word? I don't know.
I am the knight.
I am
fucking is now. That's a t-shirt.
Anyone who knows me, and that's like 3 people, knows I am, like Kevin, a huge MCU fan. I don't do that chronological order bullshit, but you know, I'm all in on the MCU. I think it's one of the greatest cinematic achievements ever. Just the tying in of all these stories together, over 20 movies in over a decade. Every little bit, now the TV series, everything's amazing. And it's also one of the only things I really look forward to. But I gotta say, I am in love with the new Batman. Absolutely in love with it. Not only do I think it's the best comic book movie ever made, I think it might be my new favorite movie. I've seen it twice in theaters. I went to the DC fan event last Wednesday, the day before it officially came out. It was one showing that night. They gave out fucking swag and bullshit and no trailers whatsoever. They just got right to the fucking movie, and it was amazing. The music, the cinematography, the way it is framed. I thought I was watching a visual comic book. And the tone of it is what hooked me, because it is dark and brooding. And yes, all the Batmans since fucking 89 have been, but this is something different. This is, I mean, there's no Bruce Wayne getting out of the helicopter with multiple models and, you know, swimming in the fountain at the restaurant and doing all the billionaire playboy shit. He doesn't give a fuck about being Bruce Wayne. Doesn't give a fuck about anything except being Batman, staying up all night and beating ass. And it's incredible. I mean, he's clearly like something is off mentally. You know, he's it's not a spoiler, but you know, this movie basically starts where he's 2 years in and realizing the way it has affected him and the changes it's made in him, and he's questioning whether or not he's really making a difference. And I love it so much. I was sitting there. If I could just take the first 15 minutes of that movie and just keep injecting it into my veins all day long, I would. I love it so much. I was sitting there both times with a huge grin on my face, watching it like, I can't believe they're doing this. And it's so, like, the music is so dark and ominous and menacing, and yet so simple. It's like if you took Jaws and put it on like steroids and adrenaline. It's just a fucking masterpiece to me. I'm overwhelmed by it. I can't wait to see it again. I'm dying to see it again in the theater. My wife told me, "Oh, you've seen it twice. You're good." And it's like, no. I need to go at least 2 more times. And it's 3 hours long, so I got to figure out how to sneak away for 3 hours 2 more times before it leaves theaters. I just can't get enough of it. I've been listening to the soundtrack nonstop. Amazingly enough, there have been Nirvana songs in a lot of superhero movies recently in the past couple of years. This one has one that so brilliantly fucking used. So brilliant. It's just fantastic. I've heard all the naysayers and the nitpickers, and all the things they're complaining about are things that we've already gotten in the other movies. So if this movie had that, then you'd just be complaining that they didn't give us anything new. So I think a lot of people are kind of missing the point behind this one, but it's doing real well out there, and I hope it stays in theaters for a while, because I'm definitely going back to see it again.
Nice.
And you guys know me. Like, I don't get excited about things. I don't. Like, I'm excited about something I've already done twice.
I want to go see this with you just to experience. I have a 4-year-old. I want to experience things through his eyes. I now want to experience this movie through your eyes, Joel. You're so passionate about this.
That was kind of what I know this is supposed to be an unopposed thing, but that's kind of what I was thinking too. I was like, man, he's selling me on this so hard that I want to go see it with him.
Let's all do it, guys. Come on. Let's make it happen.
All right. Let's who wants to come up to West Palm and watch it at the whatever we have up here?
You selfish bastard. Just because you've got infant twins, you think you can pull that card? You mother. Anyway, is it my turn, Mike,
yes,
for last call? So I'm going to bring this back to beer. I think, is this a beer podcast or is this... No, not really. Okay. But I'm going to bring it back to beer anyway. So I have often made the reference of beer or of macro beer being the equivalent of like Wendy's or McDonald's, right? Time and place. There's nothing great about those beers, but they're consistent. And every now and then when you're in the mood for it, it's the perfect thing. It's the thing that you want. No one's going to confuse a Wendy's burger as being the best hamburger in the world, but there are some times when you want that burger and you know it's going to taste the same no matter what city you get it in. And the other day I was thinking, I don't know that is the best, well, that is a good analogy, but when it comes to the idea of the craft beer industry and the kind of like very simplistic, easy to digest, overly salted, overly simplified kind of food, I don't know that that's the best analogy. Maybe the best analogy for a fast food hamburger is an over-fruited smoothie sour, or a completely over-the-top, overly hopped IPA. I think one of the ways that you look at food is, are they simplistic? Are they too much of one thing? Are they trying to super serve one side of the aisle or the clientele with overabundance of one ingredient? And not even one ingredient. With a lot of food, it's just a lot of salt, it's a lot of sugar, it's a lot of fat, right? There's not necessarily a good balance in some of those foods, but because they serve us to indulgence, we really, really like them, and we're really drawn to them. And I think that some of the people making beer these days think they're making these artisanal, very, very special kinds of beers, when all they're really doing is putting an overabundance of one ingredient in there, going over the top with it, with no balance, and they think they're doing craft beer when they're doing the equivalence of fast food. They're doing one thing. They're beating you over the head with it. And I have done this in the past. I do this now. We have done beers recently at Barrel Amongst that were over the top in flavors. They're not my favorite beers. They're not the things that I want to have be my legacy in the history of my brewing career when it's all said and done. But we do them anyway. But I think that we make the mistake of thinking that doing something to excess means it's special. Doing something to excess is easy. That's the easy choice. It's a really easy choice to oversalt something, to put too much richness into a sauce, because that will get a reaction. People will like their one bite of that food, and they won't need to take other bites, and eventually they'll get tired of it. But that's not what we're doing in the craft beer industry. We're a industry, especially at the level of the craft beer nerd, where you just get a little sip of something and that's the greatest thing you've ever had in your life. So I'm reevaluating the way that I look at craft beer, and I'm reevaluating the way I look at those kind of benchmarks of what it looks like to do those kind of over the top crazy beers, where at one point I thought, oh, well, this is really interesting, and this is something that is this is something new and vibrant. Where now, even when the beers that we're making them, and I'm trying to look at this with a lens on my own stuff, not just outwardly, so that I can have some reflection and maybe not to be too much of a douchebag, but look at that and go, oh, that's the easy way out. That's the fast food choice. It's not the craft choice. It's not the well-balanced, intricate, layered flavor choice that we think we're doing, because we're an artisanal restaurant creating amazing flavors. No, we're hitting you over the head with salt and sugar and fat. That's the easy way out. And there's a lot of us doing it that way. Probably should be a little bit less.
The more you add, the more you take away.
Yeah, that was hella good, Kev. Go ahead and stay with Kevin. You want to plug anything?
Yeah, we have an anniversary party coming up for Barrel of Monks, and it'll be our 7th anniversary. We made a barley wine called Trip Sitter. I've tasted it out of the fermenter. It's really, really delicious. Joel, you guys did a great job. I'm really proud of that beer, and I can't wait to release it to the public and let them try it. It is not a Belgian beer. It uses an English ale yeast, and it's kind of the antithesis of what I just talked about in my last call. It's not over the top in any one way, shape, or form. It's just a goddamn good beer, and I'm really proud of the things that we're making and the fact that we've been around as long as we have and continue to crank out good beer.
Dope. Joel?
Well, since Kevin plugged all the brewery stuff, I'll just say that I am Joel Brews on Twitter. And don't forget to catch The Batman in theaters nationwide.
Not a sponsor.
Shockingly.
Maybe his Batarang is made by Made In.
Oh, nice. You can follow me at Mike Loves Beer on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, we'll have another episode before I really have to plug our barbecue bash at Copper Point. Teaser, go, look. It's up there. Find information. But other than that, you can follow the show on social media at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We're on all of the major podcast streaming sites, whichever suits your needs, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever. I know Joel doesn't like when I list all of those because he thinks, oh, you're listening to this on that thing. Not necessarily, but we can go over that later. If you want to support the show in a financial standpoint, you can buy a shirt, button, sticker, or whatever from our web store, unitedwedrink.com/store, or you can visit some of our sponsors, our affiliates, our brands that we really love and admire, such as Made In, Liquid Death, Death Wish Coffee. Go to unitedwedrink.com/sponsors and click on those links because when you make a purchase from them through those links, they help support this show and pay for our hosting fees and stuff like that. So Other than that, we'll be back here in a couple weeks, hopefully with a more organized format. Maybe Kevin says no. So more free period. Yay! School's out forever. So we'll be back in a couple weeks. Y'all stay safe out there. I said y'all. Fuck. I've been in the South too long. Everyone stay safe out there. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi, Ralph.
That's cute.